What's up, guys? Welcome back to OverTakes. This is Misfit, and today I am going to be doing my Grand Finals weekend predictions. It's finally here. We've waited a month. It's finally time to start talking about the matches, getting them underway. We have 1 day left. So before I start, I'd like to thank everybody out there on YouTube. Thank you very much for all of your support. It's been greatly appreciated throughout this whole season and in the past few seasons that we've been doing this show. If you guys are new, thank you very much for stopping by. If you hit a like, hit a subscribe, that'll be greatly appreciated. Hit the alert bell. I do Overwatch League content a few times a week. This week, obviously, very heavy. We did 4 preview episodes with the teams. So if you're into the Overwatch League, you want to talk about it, want to hear about it, hit the like, hit the subscribe, join up. Come on in, have some fun with us. All right, so let's just get to it. We talked about all 4 teams. We talked about the Shock, the Dragons, the Seoul Dynasty, and the Fusion. Now we're here. I give you my opinions on all 4 of those teams. The video links will be down below to see what I think about all of them individually before we get into these matches and how they match up with each other and what I think is going to happen in the finals. All right, so we're going to start this off talking about, obviously, the first set matches that we got. We got the Seoul Dynasty taking on the San Francisco Shock and the Philadelphia Fusion taking on the Shanghai Dragons. Double elimination, 4-team tournament. We have a loser's bracket, and then we have, obviously, the winner's match, and then the continuation of the loser's bracket. Obviously, we're going to have a couple teams in there before we get to the final matches. It's going to be fun, but let's get down to the matches that we know that are going to happen first, and then I'll give you my bracket predictions, where I think everybody's going to end up and who the eventual champion of the Overwatch League for 2020 is going to be. So, we talked about the Dynasty and the Shock. Let's talk about this match first. It's the first match up on the slate. It's going to be live Thursday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Seoul Dynasty, San Francisco Shock. I'm giving you the Eastern Standard Times because that's where I'm at. Gonna have to get up early. I'll be there watching this one. Friday, 5 a.m. match. Probably not gonna be up for that one. I'm telling you that right now. That one I'm gonna be watching after I watch the live matches on Friday morning. All right, so let's talk our first match. We have the Shock taking on the Dynasty. This is going to be an interesting match, mostly because it's the best team in NA taking on the surprise team in the whole tournament, and the team that has embraced the Roadhog meta to the nth degree, and with one of the best clutch players in the league in Profit. I think this match is going to be better than a lot of people think it's going to be. The Shock are going to be out there feeling the waters a little bit. They're going to be aggressive like they normally are, but they're going to try and take it to them kind of like they did Washington. But I feel as though they think that they know what Dynasty are going to do way before they did with the Justice. I think they could come out and do a lot against this comp that the Dynasty are running and have been running. And this is all speculation right now because we don't know if the meta's changed at all in scrims or anything like that. We're just going with what we know from the playoffs and what we've seen before. Now, we know that Seoul can run this comp really, really well. They have Gesture, who's playing an unbelievable Roadhog. You have Marvell playing either Sigma or Diva, and he's doing a decent job of that. Their supports are playing really well. And, of course, you have Prophet doing his thing. And you have Fitz filling the roles, whatever it may be, Sombra, or at times running Ashe or some sort of complementary thing, Widowmaker to whatever Prophet's doing. He's been running a lot of Pharah, running some Tracer. They're doing the Reaper Sombra comps too. But I think the one thing that hurts Seoul is right now that is their best option. And San Francisco is just so good at adapting that this might be a tough match for Seoul to win. And I really think that it's going to be close. I think the eventuality of this match is going to be San Francisco winning and sending the Dynasty down to the losers bracket. San Francisco just has too much right now. They're too coordinated, have way better coaching, and just some of their pieces are better than what the Dynasty have. There are pieces on the Dynasty that are going to make them competitive in this match and have the potential to win it. And it's obviously profit. And if Jester can get going on the Roadhog, and if he has to switch, he plays a competent, like he's done in the past in playoffs and things like that, a competent Winston, and they could get rolling, they could make this close. But like I said, at the end of the day, the San Francisco Shock are going to win this, mostly on coaching. The smarts that the players have, they're, like I said in the preview episodes, they're the smartest team that's here right now. They know what to do, when to do it, and they have Krusty behind them, just leading the way and directing them to the victory in this match, in my opinion. Could it go the other way? Yeah, sure. I think it could. There are various factors. There's the profit factor. There's, maybe San Francisco underestimates how good the Dynasty are at this comp, and it could lead to a loss, but I don't think it's going to in this match. I think it sends the Dynasty down to the losers bracket. The next match up, we have the Fusion taking on the Dragons. This one's going to be the banger in the first round, I think. This one is going to be very, very interesting. I think the Dragons, outside of the Shock, are the most prepared team throughout the whole season. They have a great coach of the year, Moon. They have 5 role stars. They have the MVP. They have the best roster right now as far as starting roster. The Fusion are not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. They have players on this team that are underrated. Guys like Ivy, Hisu, guys like Funny Astro that are doing things that, we forget about on main support. You have Fury and you have Sato playing really, really well. The Dragons are a different animal. Tried not to show too much of their hand against Seoul in that finals match. They had to pull out the Roadhog comp. I really think they were trying not to show their hand with that. And they were using it kind of as a back pocket strategy to maybe get through this match, the previous match against Seoul, if they had to, and they had to. So they busted that out. I think they wanted to save it for the finals to go up against some of these teams that it could counter some of the stuff that they're doing. Philly has a reasonable shot in this match. Don't count them out. I know a lot of people are saying, well, Shanghai's the best team, APAC's the best thing. Don't count the Fusion out. They are very versatile. They have a lot of great players on this team. They know what to do. They're well coached. And I think some of the guys on this team are playmakers and guys that can take them over the top against the Dragons. I think this is also, I'm going to say this now, I think it's going to be close. I think Philly loses and ends up in the losers bracket. So I'm kind of going with what everybody's going with here, but it's just the way I see it. Now, someone said in the comments in the Philly match about them losing to the Dragons once and then potentially beating them in the losers bracket. I'm not putting that outside of the realm if the Dragons end up in the losers bracket. I'm just really excited to see these matches because we can see APAC versus NA and get that just rolling. And some of these teams that should have played each other, we would have had a lot of matches between these teams and it would have been great to see, but maybe not a lot of matches, but we would have had a few and we would have had a little bit more of a handle on this. This is like new territory. I kind of like it. I think it's kind of fun where we're not sure of how these teams play against each other, what's going to happen. I like it. But that's my first round. I have the Shanghai Dragons and the San Francisco Shock moving on. And then I have the Dynasty and the Fusion dropping down to the losers bracket. Okay, so let's talk where I'm going next. Okay, so we're going to have the Shock taking on the Dragons and the Dynasty taking on the Fusion. I really want Seoul to perform well, but unfortunately, I don't think they have the guns to match up against what the Fusion have and what the Fusion can do. There's a potential where they could win and be in the winners bracket or beat the Fusion or beat the Shock. I don't see it. I really want to see it. I hope it happens. I hope they win a match. I want to see profit go off. I want to see the Dynasty get themselves to the glory that they were supposed to have in the first season, be the team that was promised at the beginning of the season with these guys that they brought in from London. But I think at the end of the day that the Fusion are just a better team and better prepared to switch up, change metas or change comps and adapt with the flow, keep going. And I think there's a little bit of drive behind this team. Carpe, guys like that, they want to get this monkey off their back where people are calling them losers and all this stuff, second place, bridesmaids, any of that kind of stuff that has been thrown at them. They're never going to finish. I think even though they will lose to the Dragons, in my opinion, they're going to get the redemption in this match at least. Keep moving in the losers bracket. Seoul, slightly disappointing year, but they get to the finals and it kind of redeems them in a way, and we'll see what happens in the off season with them. I would, like I said, I want to see them do better. I want to see them won in this tournament, but I just don't see it happening. It was an up and down season, ended in a kind of a not the greatest fashion if it goes the way I'm seeing it, but they still got there. They still managed to pull it together. Yeah, Meta fell in their lap, but they managed to make it work and they got to the finals, and it's not the worst season, but it could have been better. Now let's talk about the match that we've been waiting for since this is much like last year when we were waiting for the Titans to play the Shock, the two best teams in the league going at it. This game is going to be back and forth. I just want to see this. I can't wait to see it. And I think the way they match up right now, I am kind of going to go with the Dragons in this. I like the way the Dragons play. I like the fact that they can mix things up. Yeah, San Francisco can too, but Shanghai's not married to the dive comp. Do they play that better? Yes. I think that's something that San Francisco does not play as well, especially if we get in a Sombra dive. I think the Sombra aspect of it, Shanghai has a definite advantage with Lip, and also Fleta is so versatile and so good. He can play any of these heroes that they have. The one thing that I do think San Francisco has over them, I do like Violet or Twilight and or Moth, their three supports better than Li Jiegong and Izayaki or Luffy. I just like their support line a little bit better. I think the tanks are kind of slight edge to Shanghai, but Choi Hyobin is the caveat. Yeah, Void's really good, but I don't think he's on the level of Choi Hyobin, especially in these pressure situations where Choi Hyobin has been before. Some of that is going to play out, but I do think the Dragons overall can beat the Shock, and I'm going to go with will beat the Shock in this and end up ultimately in that final match. Now we move on to the losers bracket, and we got Philly, in my mind, waiting in the weeds for the San Francisco Shock. They have another chance to beat the Shock. Do I think it can happen? Yes. Do I think it will happen? I am going with yes. I think they can beat the Shock this time. I'm going with them on a lot of different, they have learned some stuff. They're ready. They're in the losers bracket. They have one last shot. Their backs are against the wall. I said with the Seoul match, Fury and Alarm and Carpe and the whole cast of characters there, I think they will be able to get over on the Shock. I think it's time. I think this is their spot where they can win and ultimately get past them, get the monkey off their back, and move it into the finals. I think that they have to play an unbelievably perfect match to beat the Shock, more so than I think they would to beat the Shanghai Dragons, because the Shock have played them. They know how these guys play. They know their strategies. They know what to expect from Philly. That's not to say Shock can't win. There's a good probability that they would win this match. They're one of the best teams in the league, if not the best. They have great cohesion, all the stuff that we talked about. I just think that this time that Philly's going to have their number. I think that they're going to be prepared to play them. They're ready to play them. Philly's going to have more trouble to start with Shanghai and possibly Seoul, but I think they get by Seoul, lose to Shanghai, get the Shock. I think just unbelievable. They've also had a lot of time to prepare, so I would not, like I said, don't count them out by any stretch of the imagination. I want to say what Philly can run is a little bit better than what the Shock can run right now. I like guys like Ivy and Carpe and Hisu. I like them a little bit better than some of what the Shock has to offer. Yeah, Rascal can play everything really, really well. He's a god. You have Ons, who's a hit scan god. You have Striker, who's great on a couple of different heroes, but Fusion's DPS line is going to outplay the Shock's DPS line in this, and I think that's going to be the biggest factor. When you get guys like Ivy in there, he can play Reaper, he can play Mei, he can play Genji, he can play a lot of different stuff. If you have Carpe in there, obviously Hitscan, crazy. You get Hisu in there, you can run your Sombra comps. I just think that there are certain things that they can bring out in this match. Yeah, it's a big match. The Shock are always good in those, but I think that the Fusion this time are going to do it against the Shock. Unfortunately for the Shock, they lose. I don't think it's a bad season if they got to this point. This is, not as far as ultimately they would have wanted to go, but I think you can't count on a good season if you get that close to the championship. But in their mind, it's a failure, and they're going to regroup and get ready for next year, in my mind. Philly, on the other hand, gets the monkey off their back. They get into the final match for the second time in 3 years. They're going to be playing the Shanghai Dragons this time, and this match is going to be one for the ages. I think I've been looking at it from different perspectives. I think the first one's a feel-out one. I think Shanghai takes that. I think this one, going to the best of 4, we're going to have a just incredible match. I think we're going to go the whole distance. I think it's going to be 4-3. I do think it's going to be Shanghai again. I'm not going to discredit or discount Philadelphia at all in this. I just think Shanghai is probably just a little bit better. Philadelphia can win in a second return match. They're going to learn a lot. They just are good at doing things like that. We saw what they did with the Shock in the middle of the year. After they got beat by them, they came back and beat them. Granted, some people think it's a meaningless game, but to the Fusion, it was not. They're good at that kind of thing. They learn. They do great things, but I just think that the sum of Shanghai's parts is a little bit better than the sum of Philadelphia's parts right now. You have 5 role stars, the MVP, Coach of the Year. Philadelphia, you have great players. You have the Rookie of the Year. You have MVP candidates. You have role stars. You have all the stuff going on there. I just think that at the end of the day, Shanghai can take them in pretty much any comp because they can adapt a little bit better than what Philadelphia can do. You have Philadelphia, they have a little bit of an edge in the support line. I said it before, and I'll say it again. I think Shanghai is the best tank line, and that's going to be huge in this. I think that they're kind of even on DPS if you count all the pieces. I do think one of the caveats, and I said it in the Shanghai preview, is if they get into a Widowmaker thing, if you bring DM in, that's kind of it's something that could bring a boost to your team, turn a map, just bring a different feel into things. If you're losing, it could turn it around. That's now one of the things that I worry about, with Shanghai is they have gone down in matches before, and they've had to come back. I don't think if they get down to Philadelphia in a 3-0 or something like that, they're going to reverse sweep them. Philadelphia is a different team than Seoul or New York or any of the other teams that they've had to do that, or Hangzhou. This team is way better than those teams. If they go down to Philly like that, if they're trying to feel them out and they start getting pummeled, they're not going to come back from that. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a lot of back and forth. I think there's going to be a lot of tension and all of the good stuff that we want to happen from the finals. But I think the Shanghai Dragons are going to be the 2020 Overwatch League champions, the full redemption arc. Though it's a different roster, it's still the same organization where they've come around from the worst team going 0-40 to losing 2 matches in a year. Granted, a strange year, a crazy year, and becoming the Overwatch League champion. As far as Overwatch League MVP, I would not put it past Fleta from winning it again, but don't count out guys like Lip or guys on this team. Guys like Lip, Fearless. I think any of those guys can win something like that. I'm really horrible at those predictions because I have to get the predictions right, and you guys, if you follow the show, my predictions are kind of weird. I get some right, I get some wrong. I've been pretty decent with APAC predictions throughout the whole year. I mean, it's a lot easier with the lesser amount of teams and all that. But I think that to wrap up the season, Philadelphia versus Shanghai, and Shanghai winning 4-3 is going to be a fantastic end to a great season. And that's my champion, the Shanghai Dragons. Early congratulations. Now that I've said that, congratulations to whatever team wins. It's probably going to be Seoul because Prophet's going to do something weird. My normal, what ends up happening. But anyway, guys, that is going to do it for my championship weekend preview. thanks to everybody out there for all your support throughout the whole regular season, the playoffs, and coming into this grand finals weekend. Thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated. I'm going to be here throughout the offseason. We got a lot to talk about. We had a lot of things happen today that I didn't want to get into yet. We'll talk about that probably on the weekend or early next week. We're going to talk about some of the things. We had some things with the Gladiators and the Uprising and the Charge that I want to get into, but today's not the day. It's preview day. I know it's news that might not be pertinent by then, but I want to talk about the games that are happening right now. That's going to do it. I will be around the whole weekend doing some stuff because we have the games on early in the morning, so I will have some thoughts and things like that. I'll be posting them up. But most importantly, comment down below. Let's get into this conversation together. Jump on in. Let's talk and get these grand finals going. Hopefully I'm right. I've predicted one right, and that was the London Spitfire. I think I picked the Titans. I'd have to go back and check that, but that was almost a year ago. In fact, it was probably a year and a few days ago. But anyway, thanks again. This is Misfit. I'm out. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the finals matches. They are going to be epic. And we'll talk around the matches and stuff. Until then, I will talk to you guys on the next one.